Pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang magiliw, telas ng sigatanan, alam ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang pinirang, tuyagan ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigiw, sa nagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ng bagaw, ay hinatang tulad, awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nag-iindig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magdidinig. Luman ang araw ng walhaging pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya na pagkay mga amin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. Just a slight modification. He's not physically present, so we will have a virtual session with our chairperson. Can we have that ready?
Hi. Good morning. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues in the agriculture industry. Special welcome to His Excellency Shambhu Kumaran, Ambassador of India, and First Secretary Nishikant Singh, who has been instrumental in helping organize this event. Well, as if just to remind us that COVID is still with us, I was informed this morning that someone in my close contact circle was tested positive. So I've had to forego being physically with you. There are two things I wanted to say to the audience. One, this forum is very timely because we are in this milieu of food shortage. I believe that there's no better time for the farmers, and the coming years will show that investments in agriculture will pay off. That is our advocacy, and improving productivity of our industry is really the main concern of PCAFI. The second item I wanted to discuss was that at this junction of agriculture food shortages, it is also very important that we are aware that the supply chain chokes much of the supply that have our farmers have produced. 2 years ago, your chamber started the advocacy program called the Agri-Food Hub. And in this Agri-Food Hub, we started to render free matching services between our buyers of agriculture products with farmers. And in our recruitment effort, I'd like to report that we have now more than 52,000 farmers in 670 organizations selling through the system. And yet, in this last few days, when shortages were reported, we were still able to identify. So these are the apps that we built during the pandemic in the last 25 months. Next slide, please. And as you can see, we've classified our farmers in the different regions who are enlisted as members of the Agri-Food Hub. Primarily, the highest count are in Quezon Province and in Southern Luzon, followed by Central Luzon. We already have a substantial amount of matches and next slide, please. So out of the 52,931 farmers, we've been able to match about 70% of them and had serviced 2,853 requirements involving some 2,400 metric tons of produce. And we're glad to report to you this status because it is at this time that we feel that Agri-Food Hub will be most helpful. And I appeal to our members, our industry associations to continue to sign up at the Agri-Food Hub app and contact us. Undersecretary ASEC Doy Salakop is on top of this project, and he would be a good person for you all to contact. And in the meantime, I congratulate Danny for this very important event, and I thank the Embassy of India for hosting this event with us. Good luck to everyone, and we look forward to many areas of cooperation. Thank you.
Well, as instructed, I'm here to physically receive your application to be enlisted in the Agri-Food Hub Market Linkage app. It's an online pagsaka. And just to reiterate the report of our chairperson, we have around 52,000 farmers already enlisted. I know, I see people from Philcodex, from the other exporters groups. If you are in need of your supply of raw materials, try our PCAFI supported Agri-Food Hub Market Linkage app. Let's help our farmers and fishers. Okay, again, thank you to Chairman Philip for the welcome message and of course the promotional segment on the Agri-Food Hub app. At this point, I'd like to call on our President, Mr. Danny Fausto, to deliver his welcome remarks and at the same time come up with the President's report of what PCAFI has been doing for the past 2 years and how PCAFI will be very, very instrumental in facing the challenges of today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our President, Mr. Danilo Fausto. Thank you very much to our Secretary Director, Doy Salakop, former Undersecretary of the Department of Agriculture. His Excellency, Ambassador Shambhu Kumaran, the Ambassador of India to the Philippines. Good to see you again, Your Honor. I understand Senator Peter Cayetano will be coming over in a short while, on his way. First Secretary H.E, my good friend, the Indian Embassy. Undersecretary H.E, the Chief Operating Officer of the Department of Agriculture. Perhaps, and I should address you as Secretary of Agriculture. I'd like also to recognize Senior Deputy Speaker, Congressman V. Soberano Ilocos Sur, who is with us. He's a member of PCAFI. Of course, our Chairman Philippine earlier. To the officers and members of the Philippine Chamber of Agriculture and Food Aid, our participants that are now tuned in by your Zoom and Facebook. I understand we have confirmation that in Mindanao, Bacolod, Quezon, Davao, Cagayan de Oro, Pangasinan, they're all here. Unfortunately, they cannot come here physically, but they are with us. Our active member of the company. Associates, colleagues, partners, and friends, good afternoon. Welcome to the annual General Membership Meeting of the Philippine Chamber of Agriculture and Food, Inc. A conglomeration of the different sectors in Philippine agriculture, whose main purpose is to foster closer relations, understanding, and cooperation among the agriculture and fisheries sectors of the economy in order to forge a strong and solid alliance for an effective contribution to the enhancement of food production in the Philippines and to provide the institutional framework for a single voice to represent the members in the other sectors of society, including the government and its various agencies and instrumentalities. I'm looking at you, Secretary. We represent 48 agricultural subsectors composed of different agriculture federations, associations, cooperatives, and commodity chapters. We have also a strong alliance with PCCI, CAMP, or the Coalition for Agricultural Modernization, Alianza Agricultura, and the Agri-Fisheries Alliance, working together to ensure food security for our country. I'd like to especially acknowledge some of our colleagues representing the core of PCAFI, who have been working hard to realize our tasks. Our chairman, of course, Philip Ong of Sante Feeds Corporation, Attorney Bong Ishong and Jordi San Diego, they will be coming over this morning with Secretary Chua regarding RCEP, of the United Broilers Raisers Association, from the Pork Producers Federation, formerly headed by my good friend Edwin Chen of Bounty Fresh, and the National Federation of Hog Farmers, headed by Chester Tan, who is now in Jensen listening and joining us. The Philippine Rice Industry Stakeholders Movement, or PRISM, composed of the whole rice value chain, seed growers, farmers, rice millers, importers, wholesalers, retailers, and consumers, headed by Wayne De Rosario. Where's Wayne? Wayne. Henry Limbolio, he's not here, but he's from SN Agritech, he's our treasurer, and also the president of the Filipino Chinese Chamber of Commerce. Of course, our very active Vice President, Eddie Ordonez of Alianza Agricultura, Bombit Bertamino of the Scant Sardines Association of the Philippines, from the Academy, Dr. Rolly G of the University of Asia Pacific, from our food exporters comprising the Philippine export clusters represented by Philip Yang, tropical fruits preserves, sauces, and condiments, with Tomas Medina, a food export consolidator, Helen De Rosario of Calamansi, Fergie Champonco, formerly of Mondivisi, and many more of our friends who are exporters and here today. From the vegetable sector, Mr. Toto Barcelona of Harvest, and Mr. Jet Hernandez, our king of okra. Jet. Tony Roses of Adili, our members from Mindanao, Bobby Alsaldo, Larry Kulog of Davao, of the Bee Farmers Market, producing Mindanao exotic fruits for export, and Phil Mais, based in Bukidnon, with its president, Mr. Roger Navarro, represented here today by the director, Art Salazar, and chairman, Mr. Rod Dioco, also Bukidnon, of Giant Bamboo Resources. Tita Benny Arellano is in Pangasinan now, of Buringaling, Philippines. Our Calamansi farmer of Mindoro, Mr. Romy Flores, our chili and spices of Laguna, Mr. Ray Orozco. From the Philippine Association of Feed Millers, headed by its president, our good friend Ed Papana, and Nicky Sarmiento Garcia. From Cebu, Mr. Jimbo Pedrosa of the Seaweed Industry Association of the Philippines, together with their president Mike Tan, Dennis Tan of Siasma, and Mr. John Lee of W. Hydrocolloids. With them representing 95% of the seaweed industry processing sector. From Leyte, Mr. Rachel Tan Ganucci of H.E. Agriventure, and Steve Pua of the Association of Supermarkets, our friends, of course, from Rotary International, who are here involved in agriculture, headed by incumbent District Governor Ed Ayento, undertaken a novel community project this year with 101 Rotary clubs setting up aquaponics in almost all elementary schools and barangays in Quezon City, raising red tilapia, lettuce, and other vegetables for children to learn agriculture at an early age. Together with their teachers and parents, funded by millions of grants from the Rotary Foundation, and many, many, many more, which I cannot enumerate further in the interest of time. A special acknowledgement, as I said, but I forgot, I have to acknowledge Mr. Christian also. Thank you very much, sir, for coming. A special acknowledgement also, and thank you to our agricultural champion at the House of Representatives, as I said, Senior Deputy Speaker D.B. Savillano, who joined PCAFI to represent not only tobacco, but onions and garlic industry. Kong DB that pushed hard and helped us in all aspects of our advocacy, not only in Congress, but in the other government agencies. My dear friends and colleagues, Philippine agriculture, as always, has been experiencing difficult times right now. For some of you who have been following the magazine Economist regarding the coming food catastrophe, amid the talk of a cost of living crisis and national elections, people have lost sight of a far more serious threat, a global and domestic food shortage. The war in Ukraine is battering a food system that is already weakened by COVID-19, climate change, and an energy shock. Russia is blocking the port of Odessa. As a result, Ukraine's export of grains and oilseeds have mostly stopped. Russia and Ukraine are among the top 5 global exporters for many important cereals and oilseeds, such as barley, sunflowers, and sunflower oil, as well as maize or corn, according to the International Food Policy Research Institute. However, war is just the trigger. Even before the invasion, the World Food Program had warned that the year 2022 would be a terrible year. As it happens, I understand that a brutal heat wave is scorching on India, the world's second largest wheat producer. China, the largest, has said that after rains delayed planting, this year's crops may be its worst ever. Elusive rain threatens to suck yields in other bread baskets, from America's wheat belt to northern France region, which is France's most productive agricultural areas. The Horn of Africa is being ravaged by its worst drought in 4 decades. The shortage of food will have a grievous effect on the poor. Households in emerging economies spend about 25% of their budget on food, and in sub-Saharan Africa, as much as 40%. In the Philippines, the mean 1 day per capita or average daily individual food intake is 855 grams. This comprised mostly of rice, fish, and vegetables. In 2015, the proportion of food in the total family expenditures was 42%. Of this proportion, 32% constituted the food consumed at home, and 8.2% were spent for food regularly consumed outside the home. Among the foods eaten at home, cereals and cereals preparation got the biggest share at 11.7%. Around 5% each comprised expenditure for meat and meat preparations, and fish and marine products. Fruits and vegetables accounted for only 3.5%. The war has triggered a huge spike in wheat prices, with Russia and Ukraine among the biggest exporters of the commodity. Both countries account for 29% of global wheat exports, according to the World Bank. Other than rising food prices, supply of many food products are also uncertain. Ukraine has not been able to export grains, fertilizer, and vegetable oil, while the conflict is also destroying crop fields and preventing a normal planting season. India has banned wheat exports, becoming the latest country to do so as the price of grain surged this year. As I was informed by our member, H.E of Bounty Fresh, they have 4 shiploads of wheat supposed to be coming from India, but it was banned. Perhaps with the help of His Excellency Ambassador, he can help our members to be banded together, the Philippine Association, who's been trying to import wheat from India. India has said it's banning wheat exports to manage the overall food security of their country. That's according to the local media reports. India is not alone. In addition to Russia and Ukraine, Egypt, Kazakhstan, Kosovo, and Serbia have also banned wheat exports, including other food products from Argentina, Algeria, Indonesia, Iran, Turkey, Tunisia, and Kuwait. Similar to India, Indonesia cited the need to ensure food availability domestically after global food inflation soared to record highs following the war. Indonesia accounts for more than half of the world's palm oil supply. Make no mistake, my friend, colleague, we are now on our own. With the private sector in the Philippines providing 95% of the total investment vis-a-vis the total Philippine agriculture output, we need to further expand and increase our production to feed our people. But how on earth can we do this if our own government is preventing us from doing so? I'm not addressing this only to the Department of Agriculture, but the entire agriculture government instrumentalities. Government should provide the right environment and incentive for the private sector to invest, expand their production, value chain, and supply chain logistics, not kill them with competition from cheap and subsidized imported products. Providing cheap food for the consumers and fighting inflation through imports is a short-term solution. Producing our own food requirements, although a much longer process, will be more sustainable for our people. We appeal for a level playing field from government. Doing otherwise, we will be shooting ourselves not on the foot, but on the head. With the Agri-Food Fisheries Allowance composed principally of Dr. Emil Labier, Karen Ortodes, and myself, we have been engaging Secretary Dam and his undersecretaries on a regular monthly basis to air concerns regarding different issues in agriculture. And Mr. Cayetano is a witness to this. He's been one of those that we've been engaging on a monthly basis. I would like to assure you, my members of PCAFI, that all the issues that we have been discussing reaches the attention and understanding of the Department of Agriculture, the House of Representatives, and the Senate. Receiving an immediate action and positive response to our issues and concerns, unfortunately, is much to be desired. Interviews with the presidentiables and senatoriables during the campaign period, stating our problems in agriculture, resulted in having the candidates became the mouthpiece of agricultural development during the campaign. For decades, agriculture has been relegated as a second priority. Now that practically all winning senators and presumptive president BBM, of course, including our distinguished guest speaker, who will be, I think is on his way, Senator Alan, which was actively and vigorously supported by our group to win the senatorial seat, have acted as our messenger to ventilate the problems besetting our agriculture sector. The future now is becoming brighter with expected attention that will be given by the next administration. I hope with the new Secretary Ariel Cayetano, for a true and honest, inclusive growth and development of Philippine agriculture. In addition, as part of our advocacy, the national budget appropriation allocation gave an increase of around 30% to the DA budget for 2022. And subsequently, with a more reasonable parity budget allocation given by DA to other agriculture subsectors, with an apparent decrease in the budget of rice and giving more attention to livestock, poultry, vegetables, and high-value crops. You will recall that in the previous years, rice got 70% of the DA budget, to include, of course, the National Irrigation Administration, which irrigation projects are more or less 100% devoted to rice, while contributing around only 20 to 22% of the total agricultural output. But on the other hand, livestock and poultry contributing a third or 30% more or less of the agri output, got only 3% of the DA budget. We believe that we are also instrumental in lobbying for the transfer of the National Irrigation Administration to the supervision of DA, the Department of Agriculture, after President Duterte signed Executive Order number 168 last April 2022, transferring NIA to DA. And attaching the chief from being under the office of the President for almost 8 years. After all, how can you plan productively and efficiently if you have no control of water or irrigation? And now, we shall be working for the Philippine Coconut Authority and the Fertilizer and Pesticide Authority to follow. As most of you will recall, I've been meeting some of you individually or through your respective associations to discuss your ideas, your recommendations, specific issues and concerns. These are then relayed to the DA, to Congress and the Senate, even up to the office of the President. On a micro level, we have engaged the different national budget program directors of the Department of Agriculture, with Ka-Ernie heading the team, to discuss their roadmaps, goals, action plans, and the budget, providing the necessary intervention to help the beleaguered sectors in agriculture. And now, almost all major commodities have their roadmaps. Although not perfect, wherein previously, for decades, there were none. Now, we have something to start with and conduct the necessary scrutiny, review, and monitoring
to ensure that the desired goals and objectives of the roadmap in developing our subsectors and helping our farmers and stakeholders to ultimately benefit. Another important thing also that we have to mention is the establishment of Agri-Food Hub. It was discussed lengthily earlier, the Agri-Food Hub. And it was presented to you na ADP. May I especially acknowledge your Honorable Senator Alan Peter Cayetano. Senator Alan, welcome. For giving me up of the leader of the speech, I'm supposed to address this to you. In connection with the challenges that we now encounter for the availability of imported feed wheat as an alternative to a more expensive corn, which represents 60% of feed ingredients, and other raw materials for the production of feeds, which represent around 70% of cost in raising chickens and feeding our pigs. I would like to request our friends from PAPMI, headed by President Ed and Nikki, to look at the biological discoveries and innovations of our scientists from UP Los Baños, represented by Cam, our associates, making available locally and much cheaper and better alternative to feed manufacturing inputs. They need investors, but they have tested alternative for feed wheat which you are exporting from Ukraine. So, to our good friend from Feed Milling Association, Ed and Nikki, please do contact Dr. Ed Javier and our friends from camp so that you might be able to test it and secure locally inputs for our feed manufacturing. Likewise, there are successful discoveries and inventions made by our scientists to minimize the use of expensive inorganic oil-based fertilizer, utilizing organic materials, resulting in equally high yield and efficient production of rice and other crops. Perhaps our friends from India or businessmen from India can also help us on this. So we can vote together. I'd like to congratulate Your Excellency for a good meeting yesterday with President PBN talking about agriculture. Thank you, sir, for that giving priority to our sector. And today, we are fortunate our speaker.
Di ba meron doon sa screen merong ito.
The handsome Senator Alan Peter
screen na gumaganon, mababa pa.
Hindi, yung sa'yo, nakataas na yun sa'yo.
Todo na dito eh.
We now look up to him as our agriculture champion in the Philippine Senate.
Dapat mga half-man lang
We are
magpapatalo yun eh.
That with his help,
Kalahati.
our advocacies, concerns, and recommendations could be heard and acted upon by the Senate. Looking forward to the next administration, we are anticipating that among other concerns, the Regional Cooperation for Economic Partnership, or RCEP, the right our four major immediate and doable concerns. Number one, increase agriculture budget allocation from the national budget for 2023 and fair distribution of the said budget within the Department of Agriculture. With the increase in the debt burden of the national government, which is now 12.7 trillion pesos, plus additional for the rest of the year, is now projected to reach 67% of the GDP. And implementation of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, which is increasing by 27.6% the current era of HEUs, or 235 billion. This will definitely create challenges in the national budget preparation. We appeal to government with the help of Senator Alan, that food production should not be sacrificed when the DBM or the Department of Budget undertakes haircuts for future budget allocation program. Second is the serious and sincere establishment of a first border quarantine facility, undertaking food safety measures and fighting smuggling of agricultural products. We need to protect especially our hog and poultry industry by instituting biosecurity measures and stop smuggling of agricultural products to avert the destruction of our farmer producers. While hog is being exploited by the African swine fever, we also have to protect and provide solutions to our poultry and fishery sector as a source of protein for our people, shifting from the consumption of pork. The third is earmarking of tariff collection to the commodity sector where it was generated to help the industry. Just like in the RTL or rice certification law, all revenues derived from tariff from imported commodities must be utilized to the same sector where it was generated to help develop the said industry. Most important to this is the support to the corn industry. On a macro level, if we want to solve our problem in hog and poultry, we have to increase the productivity. From other government agencies be given attention. For example, post-harvest facilities, cold storage, supply chain logistics, modern technology and innovation, biosecurity, food safety, etc., etc. We must not suffer the same fate from our painful lessons when we join the WTO. Appropriate laws were passed by Congress and the Senate, but the implementation of these laws were not done to keep our affected agricultural subsectors ready and protected, maybe due to lack of budget and agriculture being treated as a second priority by government compared to other countries like Vietnam and Thailand. We must not let this happen if we are to enter the RCEP. In addition, we see other concerns that should also be given priority attention to it. The establishment of a reliable real-time data information system as provided for in the ACMA law. Providing incentives to investments and easy access to credit and capital. We have to review the implementation priorities of the Philippine Guarantee Corporation. In 2020, based on the report of the Commission on Audit, out of the total outstanding guarantee done by the Philippine Guarantee Corporation of 207 billion guarantees, only 500 million guarantees was given to the agriculture sector and 3 billion to the micro and small and medium enterprises, and more than 200 billion for real estate benefiting big developers that don't need to be guaranteed in the first place by government. And institutionalizing the use of warehouse receipts in guaranteeing credit, which was formerly the function of the Capital Board. Diversification of agriculture production, giving more attention and investment in commodities other than rice. Rationalizing the legal framework for the use of generic seeds for corn. Just like in the generics law on pharmaceuticals. And balancing the use of organic fertilizer to reduce our dependence on expensive oil-based inorganic fertilizers. Accelerate the effort to farm consolidation and clustering for mechanization and economies of scale. And most important of all, as I said earlier, investment in supply chain logistics and post-harvest facilities for rice, corn, and other crops, aquaculture and fisheries, chicken and livestock, like dryers, warehousing, cold chain, and other logistics, the whole supply and value chain. And now, today, we are also very fortunate to have with us as our guest speaker and generous host, the Ambassador of India, His Excellency Shambhu Kumaran. Let's give a big hand to our ambassador. Together with the other business leaders from India, who will also be properly introduced later. I'd like to acknowledge the arrival of the President of UBRA, United Broiler Races Association, Mr. Boncho, our Corporate Secretary. We are very thankful that the Republic of India, through its embassy in the Philippines, is extending their helping hand and cooperation to develop our agriculture sector. As a matter of fact, this is one of the major topics and priorities discussed by His Excellency with Presumptive President BBM yesterday when they made a courtesy call. Thank you very much for that giving us priority. They will share with us India's technology and how it can help Philippine agriculture. Again, thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Bringing lessons from the Indian experience, 1960s to the early 70s, India was a highly food import-dependent economy. Today, India is one of the world's largest producer of food grains. In addition to feeding their 1.3 billion people, they were able to share some surplus to the export market. And this transformation is made possible due to the efforts of the people of India and their government. As described by His Excellency, 5 important points from India that could be useful to the Philippines. Number 1 is their emphasis on production. Number 2, strong reliance on technology. Number 3, providing easy access to credit. Tayo dito, mayroong credit, mayroong mobile. For India, agriculture has to meet the needs of the future, particularly about climate change, commitments of meeting the food and safety requirements of the growing population, organic foods, and anticipating the new trends in the market. As producers, India has responded to these requirements. And lastly, India never lose optimism about their agriculture. And so, with the help of Senator Alan and members of PCAFI, we have to emulate these lessons from India. But now I feel that I've spoken too long and taken too much of your time, but I cannot control myself to air these issues and take it out of my chest. It is now time to move forward and listen to our featured speakers. I hope that you have enjoyed your lunch and would like to express our deepest gratitude to the Indian Embassy, to His Excellency Shambhu Kumaran for sponsoring today's event. Again, welcome and enjoy the rest of the day, and thank you.
we seek Mr. Danny Fausto. It seems Mr. Danny Fausto has a full grasp of what Philippine agriculture is all about, the challenges that it is facing, and the possible solutions. Thank you for your welcome message and complete report, Mr. Secretary. Sorry, Mr. President. At this point, for external relations, the lead convener of Agricultura. And when it comes to media relationships, these are lead in PCAFI. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ernie Ordonez.
Are you okay? But I speak. I'm supposed to introduce a guy called Peter Cayetano, H.E. I don't think he's H.E. To me, he's PDB. He's triple B. Why? Because for me, he's not H.E. He's PDB, meaning brilliance, brazenness, and bravery. Let me explain why. Brilliance. Always a top student, so wonder. But brilliant from the start. The youngest in the history of the Philippines, recounts it. The youngest in the history to be vice mayor. The youngest in everything. Congressman, senator, the whole shebang. Brilliant guy. Listen to him, right? He has eloquence and intelligence. Next one, brazen. Mayabang, brazen. Not mayabang, but convinced. Brazen in the dictionary says, he will stop at nothing to do something that's good for the people. And you see that. You see people, easy and that gun. You're fighting a big gun, a big person. What is important? What's that? The scams. He's going to fund that. He'll let it fight the scams, some of which is still happening today, right? But that one he fought and won. And the third one, this one they got everything. Freedom of Information Act. We in agriculture need that. They hide so much from us. And he fought that, right? And the last one, if he is brilliant and he's praised by anyone, he's also brave. But let me not get this brave expert. Let me tell you what his bravery will fight for in agriculture. Three things. Number one, he's got to fight on the money, pricing, etc. And in turn that money into resources that we use for us in agriculture. Because he will be our champion in agriculture. Is that right? Number two, power. He gets seduced by power. He talks about God all the time. And God tells him it's an instrument, right? And that power thing, it will control him. He won't be controlled. He will do the power that God gave him. And use that power for us using that before. And the third one is the one that we in agriculture know very well. It is called there is incompetence, right? But since he is brave, he will cite it and he will make it happen. And overall, the APC Alan Peter Cayetano. Thank you.
I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. That's the words of the prophet Jeremiah, who's a prophet who's acknowledged by different religions. And regardless what our religion is, I think all of us believe that God has great plans for us. But I love starting with that verse for two reasons. First of all, I like to remind people that if God has a plan for us, the devil also has a plan for us. And to steal. So and the second reason is a reminder that we are free to make choices, but we are not free to determine the consequences of our choices. So we are free to make a choice that agriculture is not a priority. But that doesn't mean we'll be able to feed our people. That doesn't mean that prices will not skyrocket. That does not mean that we'll not be able to stop smuggling because it's just such a good deal for the smugglers and the consumers. So making the right decision brings you to God's plans of prosperity, hope, and a future. But shortcuts, as Secretary said, which includes corruption, which includes inefficiency, etc., will really lead us to disaster. So first and foremost, I thank God for this opportunity to be in the Senate again in this crucial point in time. I see the most distinguished ladies and gentlemen, especially in the table before me, sirs, hindi ko na babanggitin isa-isa to save time. But of course, His Excellency, our Ambassador and host today, Ambassador Kumaran, thank you very much. Of course, Danny, our President and Secretary, and of course, hindi ko po isa-isahin ang ating pong distinguished panel. My wife told me that I always take too long when I speak. So I promise her today I will be fast. So I made an acronym, FAST, so that I will literally be fast. First, F is facts, A is alternative, S is strategies, P is tell our story. So in a world with so much mis and disinformation, I think it is very important that everything we do, we start with the facts. Whether we talk about science, religion, there are always facts. And I'm kind of person who do not believe that there's a conflict between faith and science. No, parating may facts. So whether you talk about how much more productive we will be if we have farm-to-market roads, whether we talk about the official productivity when it's irrigated, whether we talk about the kind of agricultural goods that we're now producing and should be producing, there are arguments, but there are facts. So maybe if I start out by asking you, should we be rice sufficient or not? Maybe the unity in the room will be a little bit disturbed. If we ask the best economists in our country, whether it's a secretary, now Central Bank Governor Jokno, whether it's Willie Munson, whether it's Petro de Dios or our new NEDA, Balisacan, there'll be an argument whether rice sufficiency is something we should pursue or not. But if we start with the facts, I don't think we will go wrong. We have to be able to come to a point that because we discuss and argue based on facts, in the end, we're not going to have a win-lose situation. We will come up with a solution which is good and which is better. So the argument, when you think what you will do is better, at least you will come up with something good. And right now, I think a lot of the arguments are. So going to the alternative, talking about winners. We have a saying in Filipino, and I think in other languages that tao hindi makalimot sa kanyang first thought,
able to get to where we want to go. So when we talk about, for example, the discussion of marathon, it might sound like a broken record in us. It's more than the safety. And former guest speaker that year fighting for that product already when we went to the world trade organization, everyone was actually everyone was also will be okay with the brand. And again, the tourist is sure and worse that people notice that it's always the poorest sectors in the country that gets after. So we don't have that kind of lobby good stuff from the rich and the rich. Most of our staff, like whether it be fertilizer staff or whatever, usually it's the farmer, like the driver, so because they're the most helpless, they have the least focus, they're the least organized. So there's the easiest to. So for me, after the fact, it's very important that when we talk about alternatives, we talk about what, where, and what works. So one of the persons I really admire is former Prime Minister and of course the elder statesman of Singapore. But look from where he discussed the journey of the Portuguese become the first world country. It's a very, very simple formula for any single project. You would think that when we talk about social turmoil, we have a different approach. Security is something important. Not only to the people, we have a different approach. When you talk about jobs and the economy of Singapore, you think you have a different approach. But you have a same approach for everything. First, study the problem. Second, look at the fact that has a big problem and solve it. Third, study the solution. Fourth, bring your team home, make them meet with experts to localize the solution. Just because it's worked in Spain or it works in France or it works in the US, it works in Africa, it works in Southeast Asia, doesn't mean it works in the Philippines. So the fourth step was bring it home, localize. 5, get the best people to do it. And 6,
the hurting of any part. By the poor, we want someone who's fast. No? President Aquino, upon the death of his mom, Filipinos were reminded of a restoration into history, a restoration into democracy, the sacrifices of a woman who some view as practically a saint, how it was a David and Goliath, etc., etc. And also it had a backdrop of scandals in the past administration, and Pinoy saying, just like my mother, I will clean things up. President Duterte was the only one talking about drugs and peace and order. Something we all sort of got desensitized or were accepting, but it was at the heart of every Filipino. So despite his language or the way he talks, he told his story better. Same by Vice President Danny in the vice presidential election. From a simple woman who wants to serve, who's in a family, who has a husband, who loves to serve. So, and the same thing now. You can argue again, information, etc. But look at the other candidates. We started out with one story, in the middle it was a different story. So whether we agree or not on these candidates, my point is, whoever tells their story better, wins. So if I was in a conference now of educators who have a problem, especially in the basic area, because there haven't been face-to-face in the last classes in the years. Or if I was now speaking before our economic managers, who are, and Sec already mentioned this, and Danny mentioned this kanina, di ba, na sagat na yung utang vis-a-vis sa GDP, no? So, mag-uunahan yan sa story. So the people will say, no, our priority should be raising the money. Don't even talk about education,
micro, small, medium enterprise, agriculture until we have the money. So people in education will say, it's baliktad. You have good education, you'll get the money. Di ba? So whoever tells the story better. And, agriculture has its advantages and disadvantages. Its advantage, even in a biblical saying, a biblical verse which is also taught to us from childhood, di ba? Sabi sa atin, whatever you sow, you will reap. Kung anong iyong tatanim, iyong kakainin, di ba? And the reality is, there's no education or finance if you're all hungry, if you're starving, di ba? If there's no food security. So all around the world, and it was overly emphasized now with the problem in Ukraine, is food security, no? So actually, when we talk about agriculture, fisheries, etc., we're really also talking about security, about food security. So if the military will now be here and say na, Alan, I agree with this gentleman, but we need our submarines because of the South China Sea, West Philippine Sea problem. We need our helicopters because we have to ganito ganyan. I would tell them one line, generals, I agree with you, but food security. When people are hungry, they will revolt. They will join revolutionary movements. And if the people revolt against you, there will be no armed forces of the Philippines, and there will be a different Republic of the Philippines. So yes, let's secure our territorial integrity. Let us fight the enemies of the state, but you can do that when we feed our people, no? And if you compare Thailand and the Philippines in the 70s, 80s, diba? It was almost the same, population, etc. But the two or three things you could say, Thais had food that was affordable. It was affordable. They really developed their agriculture, and not only agriculture, their corporate farming. Those are bigger picture questions. But yung basic, irrigation, coming up with for example, a strategy on fertilizer. Believe me, tomorrow, if the prices of fertilizer go, it went from 100 to, how much is it now? 3,000. We will just follow the supply and demand. Diba? Ganun din sa gasolina Because from $100 per barrel years ago, during the 6 years of Aquino and before the pandemic kay Duterte, we didn't have a problem with it. So we were not stabilization fund. We weren't discussing a time period to shift to renewables, etc. No? So because I think our identity also goes with the 300 years. The joke, Your Excellency, is that the Philippines was 300 years under the Catholic Church, and then a generation or 40, 60 years under Holy. So because we were always under someone a year, the British, 3 years under the Japanese, 300 years, etc. No? We're on a survival mode. But we can't always be on a survival mode. We have to have our identity. And part of our identity is planning, on all of this. So, may I have a special request, because as my wife told me to speak fast, and I'm almost done. One of her pet projects really is urban farming. So, with a friend, an NGO, Israeli technology was given to us in so the whole roof of our university was transformed into an urban farm, and then by the Laguna Lake. And Secretary Dar approved through his undersecretary. We're actually converting a part by the Laguna Lake to have floating fish pens, and then it's a small model, so I wouldn't say it's a big model, but of a agribusiness corridor. He calls it ABC, agribusiness corridor. But talking about Singapore, I was floored 20 years ago when architect Palafox was telling me, "Oh, Alan, Taguig, you have such a big area by the Laguna Lake." Then he told me, "Do you know, Alan, the whole Singapore can fit in the Laguna Lake?" So, if there was any pandemic, I was already lobbying that, Mr. President, you cleaned up Boracay, you cleaned up and put white dolomite on, I was going to say white sands, but it's dolomite on Manila Bay. You're spending a lot, and every president spent a lot on Pasig River. Can we spend some time and effort on the Laguna Lake? Because whether it's fisheries, whether it's agriculture, agritourism, anti-pollution, water, we're in for a water crisis in the next few, maybe in a decade or two, and already the Laguna Lake is being used for that. So, bottom line, ang dami nating resources, ang dami natin pwedeng gawin. But of course, just like any of you, if you speak here 2-3 hours, we go out of the door saying yes, but we don't really understand what's the first priority or what's the 1, 2, 3 things we want to do. So I'm relying on your group to tell me, when it comes to agriculture, what's the 1, 2, 3? I was texting my sister, but she didn't answer yet, because as the head of the Ways and Means Committee, she told me before the election she's not going to hear RCEP because it's really complicated, and also she was upset because before talking about the RCEP and other things, they focused on moving some bills which were for her not a priority. So Kuya Ernie briefed me a little bit on what are the real safety nets for the RCEP. So she hasn't answered me, but I doubt really that they'll hear it. So I think this is something that we can really have a strategy 2-in-1. It's for RCEP, but it's also really how to put agriculture front and center. Let me close by saying that by reiterating our Zoom secretary, my wife doesn't like me using the word, but I told her, in my generation, when you say something is sexy, everyone understands, and it's not malicioso, it's not malicious, So sabi ko kasi dun sa Zoom, for those of you who weren't in it, Your Excellency, in the Philippines, if something is sexy, everyone wants it or wants to do it, di ba? So, or another word, if it's a trend, and a good friend of me, trendsetter, you have to set trends. So gusto natin uso ang agriculture. We want agriculture to be a trend. We want it to be in fad. Well, first it has to be a fad. Diba? Let's set the trend. Diba? Because right now, from the children of the farmers, you have a survey, they want to go into nursing, they want to go into call centers. Some of them, if they live near the airport, wants to be pilots. Of course, the traditional diploma courses in the Philippines, which are all good. You want to be an engineer, you want to be an accountant, that's all good. But usually, whatever your father does, idol, father or mother, idol mo. And when you ask them, don't you like farming? A lot of them will say, no, we love it. But there's no future. There's no future. So the way I started, Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, not to harm you. So can you imagine if the Philippines, as the second parent of the children of the farmers, are now saying, I love you, and I know the plans I have for you, but there's no future in farming. So why would they go into farming? So I'd like to end by pilot projects. The problem with an archipelago with a centralized government is we're always one size fits all. So if you say our student needs tablets, iPads or tablets, the DepEd will tell you, if I cannot buy for all the LGUs, rural and let's not do it. But the richer cities go ahead and do it, so they're ahead. So why can't we do pilot projects, diba? So if in Ilocos, this is the kind of agricultural product, they're better in food processing, or in the Visayas with fisheries, there's a chance for whether supplying the Philippines or export, there's some kind of, let me stop with that. Let me tell you also, many of you here who are planning this, like me, inabot natin na yung budget was 500 billion, 1 trillion, 750 billion. The budget now is 5 trillion pesos. 5 trillion pesos. If I can invite this group and put in front of us the DBM and the new Secretary of Finance, we will challenge them. Sex, don't get mad at us. But Secretary of Finance and Secretary of Budget, give us 30 minutes with these people in the front row. We will show you how to double the budget of agriculture. 100 million is not hard to find. The BICAM people usually find between 2 to 500 billion, and this is the Delhi Atay-Atayan, nagwawalis lang sabi ng pera. This isn't the hardcore looking for, is this the right program and efficiency? Ha? This is the simple, there's 100 billion for railways, for trucks. But last year, you only spent 25. How much are you really going to spend now? And if the secretary says realistically 50, so there's 50 that we can get. So walis-walis lang po yan. So from 102 billion budget for agriculture this year, if we really put our heads together, and if we really find a way to make agriculture the trend, and we get the right people, 150, 200, 250 billion budget for 2023 is very much doable. And where will I start? If Congress is really planning another stimulus budget, that's a good place to start. Because that means they'll try to pass it July, August. And that means it's for this year. And I know I said I'll stop there, but I'll just give you a glimpse of what we were working on. In Bayanihan 2, before I stepped down as speaker, I was talking to SEC of DTI, SECDAR, and SEC ng DSWD. I told them, why do all of you have money and all of you, parang you're throwing seeds without looking if the ground is fertile or not? So they said, what do you mean? So you have money, you have 39 billion for people in crisis situation. How many of them are farmers? Sabi ko sa DTI, you have a billion, 10,000 pesos each for 10,000 each for small businesses. How many of them are farmers or food processing? You have money, I think 300 million during the time, or a billion also for shared facilities. How many of them are farmers? Then I looked at Secretary Dar. Check, I was looking at farm to market road versus top producers of rice. It doesn't add up. Maybe the first two gets the most number of farm to market. But yung iba, hindi. Yung iba ang layo sa agriculture, pero sila nakakuha. And I won't quote him because hindi naman siya, but we all know it's politics. So I asked them, when we pass this Bayanihan 2, why don't we make it an integrated project? What do I mean by that? SECDAR, you choose 10 areas that will be very productive if we give them. You organize the farmers, then I looked at SECDOLE. You give them tupad. You give them pay for 15 days to attend the seminar. Then I look at DSWD. You give them the 10 or 20,000 for the Sustainable Livelihood Program para may puhunan sila. Then I look at the TTI. You give them the shared facilities. Let's look if they're much more productive. But sir, that's not nationwide, sir. Well, sabi ko, this is not a nationwide budget. This is Bayanihan 2, where we're trying to look for solutions. And DV was part of that. Unfortunately, when I was removed, balik na naman. Ikalat na lang natin everywhere. But I told you that story just to inspire you that before, we had good ideas but we didn't have the money. Iba na po yun. Yes, medyo tight at yung utang pero 5 trillion pesos is not a joke. You know, what's our budget ng agriculture is about 100, no? 85.5. So that's about 2% of the budget, 1.5%. Yeah. So meaning, if you tell the government or the next president or no, boss, bawas lang ha, 1% from all the departments. We give it to agriculture. Sinong department ang angal sa 1%? If DTI ka at 100 billion ka, or DPWH is 550 billion. So 1%, 10% is 55, 1% is 5.5 billion. That's one highway. No. So if you tell them, guys, 1%, lipat lang namin, you'll have 200 billion. I know it's not that simple, but again, shouldn't we question, why isn't it that simple? So if they do agree that it's a priority, but they're not willing to think that way, then they're lying to you. Then it is not a priority. You cannot tell someone that's a priority, then put the money in something else. And I'll close with an anecdote just so that mapatawa ko naman kayo. So I remember when I was a young politician as congressman, no, fixed the school very much, put everything in it, and they were telling me yung principal na yan, malapit na malapit sa kalaban mo, no? Huwag mo nang gawin yan. Sabi ko, I don't really care. And maybe if I do a lot, baka naman mapalapit sa akin. So, I think 6 years kong inayos. Then dumating yung kalabang ko, ginawa niyang guest of honor, pinuri niya ng pinuri. No? So when I visited a few days later, couldn't look me in the eye, tapos sabi sa akin, Alan, sabi niya, Congressman, I just want to tell you, pinuri ko siya, pero ikaw ang nasa puso ko. Yeah. No. So this is what I told her. Ma'am, pwede ba sa susunod? Ako ang iangat mo, pero siya na lang yung nasa puso mo. No? So when people say that agriculture is in our heart, make sure that when the checkbook comes out, the check is written to agriculture. Because if not, I think you said it right. She was more a politician than I was. But again, thank you every opportunity to be with you, and I hope to be working closely.
Thank you very much, Senator Alan. A big round of fast, mabilisan, sexy, tsaka I love you. Yan ang maganda sa nangyari ngayong hapon. Okay, some house rules. No? Number one, we'll listen first to our host, Ambassador Kumaran, for his message. And then after that, I will open the floor for some questions, about 3 questions each for Senator Alan and Ambassador Kumaran. All right? So, to introduce our next guest of honor, purposes of recall, last year, 2021, the first quarter of 2021, the Embassy of India touched base with PCAFI. And together we held a virtual meeting. And in that gathering, business personalities from India presented their proposed projects to partner with entrepreneurs from our country. So that journey was started in 2021. And ladies and gentlemen, and we thank India for this, we are now on the second giant step in fostering more partnerships with our brother country, India. And this is being spearheaded by no less than our good ambassador from India, Ambassador Kumaran. Ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you, this ambassador is not from NATO. You know NATO? no action, talk only. This guy walks the talk. All right? And again, this early, I congratulate him for taking this second giant step. And we will hear more about his plans in the near future. And incidentally, President Danny mentioned a while ago, Ambassador Kumaran was one of the first ambassadors to visit the presumptive president, Mr. Bongbong Marcos. And maybe he can share with us this afternoon the macro points that they discussed in that meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome His Excellency Ambassador Shambhu Kumaran.
Namaste and mabuhay to everyone. They say afternoon speeches are the toughest to listen to, so I hope some of you are fortified with enough coffee. Let me begin by greeting the Honorable Senator, Alan Peter Cayetano. Delightful to hear you speak in depth of your commentary. Deputy Speaker, Severiano, Congressman, Undersecretary, Ariel Kainan, former Secretary, Mr. Montemayor, and of course, our colleagues from PCAFI, Chairman Philip Ong couldn't be with us today, and the irrepressible Danny Fausto, the President, and the Executive Director Salaka, all other colleagues from PCAFI. Let me also greet all of those who are joining us today virtually from India and the Philippines, in particular the representatives of agri-businesses, some of those Indian agri-businesses represented here today with their stands and stalls, and also for the Indian business chambers, FICCI and CII, who are partnering us this afternoon. I would say today is not the second step, but effectively the fourth. You were kind enough to welcome me to your last general meeting, and thereafter we did two more focused interactions, one on the blue economy, which I thought was very productive, and another on agri-machinery and equipment in collaboration with the University of Los Baños, Philippines, Los Baños. It's wonderful to carry forward this conversation because agriculture traditionally doesn't lend itself automatically to international cooperation. Concerns are largely local. It's very politically sensitive, and it's only the foolhardy embassies who would rush strongly in to engage with agriculture. But when we look at India and the Philippines, centuries of interactions, and the very similar nature of our societies, our democracies, when we look at the fact that our farmers are in a similar condition, they are largely marginalized, their farms are small, and they're unable to access credit, they're unable to access the markets, they're at the mercy of traders and intermediaries, inputs cost vary wildly, there's natural disasters. It's extremely perilous, this journey of an agriculturalist. But as we saw during the pandemic, unless we have a functioning agricultural system, our countries have to face issues of instability, and our progress can only be halted. I represent India in the Philippines, and I can tell you that we in India contend with a lot of these issues. We don't claim to have found the answers to all the questions, but we do believe that there is a combination of factors that has helped us succeed in some form. And as a friendly country, and as a country with whom we want to develop the deepest people-to-people relations, looking ahead at the strategic geography of the Indo-Pacific, the need to ensure the peace and the prosperity of our people we would like to make sure that agricultural cooperation is a key central pillar of our engagement. You mentioned, Danny, about the 5 points I mentioned last time when I spoke to you. I don't think the points are fundamentally altered. We are really looking at a situation where productivity in agriculture has to be emphasized repeatedly. And productivity increasingly in a constrained environment. And one of the critical things that we understand is how to provide a safety net for our agriculturists. And I'm happy to say that last month we were able to organize a very detailed workshop on India's flagship crop insurance program that my Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, is personally committed, called the Pradhan Mantri, which is Prime Minister's Fasal Bima Yojana, which is crop insurance. It's one of the most successful scaled up projects in the developing world on agriculture. And we were engaging actively with the PCIC and the Departments of Finance and Budget and will reach various departments and have to have coordinated policy responses. Let me just say that when I had the honor of calling on President-elect on Monday, we obviously spoke about the broader context of the India-Philippines relationship. We see this relationship as having two pillars. There's a pillar of national security where we will cooperate on defense, on maritime security, on cyber security, etc. And that's one pathway that we are exploring actively. But the more important pillar, to my mind, the critical pillar, is our development partnership. We spoke about health. The President-elect is very keen to bring in some of India's manufacturing capacities in the pharmaceutical space. We will be very happy to engage with him on that. The other discussion was on agriculture. And again, it was a cross-cutting discussion because I was able to locate this cooperation in the context of the larger approach towards digital governance. Because increasingly, we all live in what I would describe, and has widely been described, as a knowledge-based economy, which means that every sector, and agriculture is no exception, has to incorporate, to be successful, the enablers of the digital economy. And here, I believe that India's experience could be particularly valuable for the Philippines. And this is across the agricultural value chain, as we say, from seeds to satellites. It's an extensive value chain covering all aspects, inputs, harvest, post-harvest, and that feedback loop that the senator quoted, the mentor of Singapore. Essentially, you keep repeating the iterations and improving it as we go. And I'm happy to tell you that India is today one of the world's leading centers of startups. 2 weeks ago, we hit the 100th unicorn in India. So this puts us in the third position globally with regard to startups. We would like to bring some of those startups to the Philippines, engage with a lot of the startups that are in the Philippines already. Chairman Ong mentioned about a few of them that are successfully working. We need to encourage that cooperation, bringing it down to seeds, using genetics, improving the quality of output, but going beyond pure farming into horticulture, into animal husbandry, into fisheries in the blue economy. This is a vast area for engagement with India. And I'd just like to leave you with this thought. Let us engage with an open mind, and we in India are willing to even put our money where the mouth is. In other words, we have offered to the Philippines government a small grant pipeline of a few $1,000,000 each year to bring in some sort of best practices. And we are waiting for that agreement to be signed. It's taken a long process of negotiation. And we hope that that process can be concluded quickly under the new administration. When I met the presumptive president, I got the sense that his administration would be one that would mean business, that wants to get down to work quickly and energetically. And you will find India to be a willing partner in that endeavor. So thank you once again. Namaste, mabuhay, and may all of you be prosperous in whatever you do.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Thanks for ventilating on your meeting with the presumptive president. And correct me, Mr. Singh, I think the travel plans are being looked into more details for some visit from Filipino businessmen. Mr. Ong mentioned that. Okay, so I hope it happens pretty soon. All right. Okay, as I emphasized earlier, I will allow 3 questions each for Senator Alan and Ambassador Kumaran for any clarifications, any concerns that you may wish to ventilate. Okay, microphones are strategically situated around the room. Please raise your hand if you have any interest to any of our 2 guests of honor. Former Secretary Leonie Montemayor.
I have 2 short but interrelated questions to both Senator-elect Alan Cayetano and to Ambassador Kumaran. The first deals with the issue of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, Free Trade Agreement. Mr. Ambassador and Senator Alan, but perhaps starting with Ambassador Kumaran, we do know that India withdrew from at the final stage, the negotiations for RCEP, withdrew in effect at the last minute, Mr. Ambassador. And what I recall was that you were especially concerned with 2 or 3 items. The first was really the impact of that RCEP agreement, in particular, I think, on the dairy sector and on the cereal sector of India, because it would impact on the hundreds of millions of small farmers in your country. And am I correct also in saying that another major concern was the issue of transitional safeguard mechanisms? Because from the wording in the RCEP, it would seem that the leeway given to India and the other RCEP member countries to impose additional safeguard duties on their agriculture would be severely circumscribed, unlike in the case of the WTO, where the leeway is much greater. So my question is, am I correct, Mr. Ambassador? And perhaps I can also pose the same question to Senator Alan. How do you now view the current effort by the going administration to fast track the concurrence by the Philippine Senate in this agreement, considering that there is a new administration coming in? Then the second related question, perhaps this has to do more with the Ambassador. Mr. Ambassador, I do recall that 80 or 70 years back, the great Mahatma Gandhi was, emphasizing the importance of self-sufficiency at the village or grassroots level, especially in terms of agriculture. And more recently, we have the case of the late King, His Royal Highness King Phumipon of Thailand, having a similar idea. Would you say now that in view of this current crisis, war in Ukraine, climate change, that this idea of greater self-sufficiency at the lowest possible level more strongly resonates? And this has a very important bearing on how we address problems about food security and so on. Thank you very much.
Who wants to go first? I think it's addressed to both of you. So you can just be comfortable there, sir.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you, Secretary, for those very probing and pertinent questions. On RCEP, you were very right that we were fully engaged with the negotiations right until the end. And when we found that the outcome did not meet our core interests, we had to take the difficult decision to not accede to that agreement. And one of the reasons that you mentioned was critical. That was the element of the phasing in of the tariff reductions. Also the issue of safeguards in case there was a surge in the imports of a particular commodity. And clearly the agreement did not meet our benchmarks on both of those issues. There was a more fundamental underlying element also, which is that what does trade achieve? We are consistently of the view, and we continue to be of the view, that trade is a beneficial exercise for both the partners. But at some point of time, some agreements and some outcomes that you're committed to, you find that other parties find innovative ways of not honoring the commitments in spirit. They may be adhering to it in the letter, but not in the spirit. And this is something that's very difficult to overcome at a later stage. Once you are committed, and as a democracy in particular, you are answerable to your own people for all the decisions that you take. So you cannot take some of those difficult approaches at a later stage. So we did believe, looking at the impact on some of our manufacturing sectors, of having a very open trading arrangement with at least one particular large economy, we were quite concerned. We were very concerned, and that concern remains at this stage. But if you notice, of late, India has signed free trade agreements, somewhat limited in scope, with Australia, with the UAE, and we are actively engaged in discussions with the European Union, Canada, and the UK. And we have also proposed a preferential trade agreement with the Philippines, and we have exchanged the terms of reference. So what we would like is to see trade that does not destroy livelihoods, that protects the basic food and other security of our people, and that provides a broad mutuality. There's nothing called fully balanced trade, but a broad mutuality of interests should be ensured in trade agreements. And the RCEP did not meet that test for us.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador. Senator Allen?
Sec, I was in the DFA when part of these negotiations were going on. And to be fair to India, they've always articulated their concerns. And of course, you try to push your own interests because you're representing your country, but you try to push for regional cooperation that will be a win-win. But I think, and I wrote it down,
of history and planning needs a lot of work. The institutional memory, including, for example, specifically ourselves, I wonder if we really took a deep look of what we should have done, hindsight, with the WTO. And that's why personally, I see why this administration wants it wrapped up, because they worked so hard on it the last few years. But you won't be giving legislators enough time and the people like you who will inform the senators. And I remember both in the JEPEPA and in the peace talks, my proposal was, why don't you allow a congressman and a senator who's the chairman of that committee to be part of the negotiations, so that when it gets to the Senate and the House, you don't have to make your chairman your advocate because they were already a part of it. But I don't think we still follow that. No? So I'm still waiting for the answer. My sister is checking with the Trade Committee and another committee. But, you know, how do I put it, Sec? I'd rather be a little bit late but sure than rush into it and then hurt so much sectors that are already vulnerable.
All right. Thank you. Follow up?
If I may just come in on the second question you had, Secretary, about local government and sufficiency. And I think it's going to be an important discussion in the Philippines in the context of the Mandanas Gracia implementation. In India's example, we, through a constitutional amendment in the 1980s, created what a third level of government. It's called the Panchayat level or the local self-government. And there is a mandated approach towards central schemes, centrally funded schemes, all of them to have a very specific relationship with the Panchayat level officials who are also incidentally locally elected. And they form the world's largest locally elected representative body given the size of India. And these people have to be answerable to their constituency. And so what Gandhiji said and what you've been mentioning is, at the end of the day, security, whether it's food security, human security, and all of those issues, requires participative democracy. And it goes beyond elections. It goes to the local level where people are taking decisions that affect their own life, whether there should be a dam there, whether it should be a road here, what sort of crops should be grown, what impact is there. So there is an active element of democratic participation. And that's what we talk about self-government and the value of that. I hope that answers your question. It's a large issue.
Okay, thank you very much. The lady, ma'am, I will request your name, your organization affiliation, and to whom you are addressing your question.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Cora Claudio. I used to chair the Committee on Environment of PCAFI a long time ago when I was younger. But I'm now wearing my hat as convener chair of the Climate Action and Sustainability Alliance, CASA, which we spun off from the MAP, Management Association of the Philippines Environment Committee that I chaired for 30 years. This is not a question, but a suggestion, Ambassador, and also Senator Cayetano. We have so far discussed agriculture and food. But there is one area where I think India can help us a lot on. That is SDG number 3, Sustainable Development Goal on Good Health and Well-Being. A friend of mine, former PNB chair, Flor Tariela, who has a flor's garden in Antipolo, just wrote a book which I edited on weeds, weedibles and medicinals. So we have lots of weeds. We do not have to plant them. They're everywhere and we even hate them. Now, India is very good in using native plants to convert them into medicinals. So I think this is one area that we should develop because medical care here is pretty expensive and we import almost every medicine that we use. But we have part of our natural capital, weeds. And this is what I suggest we also include in our partnership.
Thank you. Thank you. President Danny, they're part of our PCAFI group. Okay, ma'am, thank you very much for that suggestion. Sa UP ho, pag sinabi yung weeds, iba ho dating sa amin nun. Alam nyo na yun. Ha? Oh. Wala ko sinasabi. Wala ko sinasabi. Okay, next question is from Attorney Bong Inchong. He is our chicken sector champion. Good friend of Secretary Dar. Yes, Bong, you have the floor.
Magandang hapon sa atin lahat. I am Attorney Bong Inchong of the United Broiler Raisers Association. I do not have a question. I have a couple of requests to Senator-elect Alan Peter Cayetano. One, sir, we have many laws already for the sector. But the problem is there is no rule of law for agri-fisheries. There is a rule of economic doctrines from a cabal of a few very ideological economists who are disconnected from the realities of what is happening on the ground. And you can quote me if you talk to them. Therefore, as a senator, may I request more oversight on the laws. Kulang ho, not only on the budget, but if you can start with ACMA. Section 13 says there should be a plan based on consultations. We do not have that. There are on file with the Department of Agriculture supposedly plans in compliance of that provision. But if you ask the sectors, there were no genuine consultations. And in fact, I came from a meeting with SINAG. This is the first time NEDA interface with us. I have been interfacing with government for 2.5 decades. This is the first time NEDA bothered to talk to us. Of course, in the presence of Mon Lopez of DTI. And perhaps through your good office, you can encourage the economic managers to put a face on the people whose policies their policies will have an impact on. Madali kasing they are very dismissive of local people, that we are anti-consumer, that we are only after our own vested interest, and yet they are blind to the fact that whether intentionally or unintentionally, they're also serving the vested interest of import interests. And second, my final request, sir, just in case, Secretary Dar is engaged currently in a whirlwind of a hell of a campaign to have himself reappointed. May I request, sir, just in case the presumptive president would make the mistake of being enchanted with these efforts, and the Commission on Appointments kindly object. And if he would inquire who is the one objecting, I would not mind if you quote me and give my name. Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you, Attorney Bong. Senator Alan.
Doon po muna, sir, sa una about consultation. In my experience sa Senate, so what I do, for example, teachers and DepEd, I have a hearing, but I really schedule it close to lunch. Then I break for lunch and force them to talk. Because sa hearing, you dig in because it's formal, it's written, di ba? But while you're having a break, and during the time that I was doing that, there wasn't yet any WhatsApp Viber. So maybe in this next administration, we can get some of the representative ng sector, and I can get a commitment from the secretary that some of the USECs, etc., be in a Viber group with us. Because it's easy to ignore you when it's not on paper. But when you have a group and everyone is, talking, and the government doesn't respond even with a simple, okay, sir, I'll call a meeting. Okay, sir, noted. then it's so easy for us to call them out and say na that's why we put this group together so that, you know, I mean, right now with digital, with Zoom, with, di ba dati if we say we call a meeting like this, it's difficult eh. But if we all say, 5 o'clock this afternoon, let's do a Zoom, even with your cell phone on the car, you can do it. So I think as far as consultation, sir, is concerned, we'll do that. Now, whoever is appointed, and God willing, I'll be a member of the CA, let's talk. I just find it an irony if Bong appoints and Bong objects. So, panay Bong po ang, but binibiro ko lang kayo, sir. But definitely, that's one reason really I'm here is trying to, ano sir, ayusin natin yung line natin. Kasi kahit naman text lang po, I mean, halimbawa, CA, at least I'll ask the staff to text you na this is the schedule, any questions, then send it over. And ang agreement ko lang sa inyo, sir, I'll always be honest. Diba? So for example, if I tell you, he's a friend, I plan to confirm him, but I will read your objections. Or if you want to object, come here, I will insist that you talk, diba, etc. Ganun lang, sir, honesty. Alam mo naman, diba, there are a lot of things happening there. And ayoko naman I don't want you to be backroom, no? And then expect, then be, no. But now is really the time to advocate and to put that on record. Diba? So I'm open for the next few weeks for smaller meetings on those issues.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Clear naman kanina when the Senator was at the floor when he was delivering his message. Projects, small projects, meaningful projects, and also, you know, concerns and issues na gusto nating iparating sa kanya. He's very much welcome to that. Okay, thank you, sir. The gentleman in black. And then Mr. Christian Monson.
Thank you po, Sir Doy. Good afternoon, I'm Erwin Belen. I am a licensed agriculturist and I have three advocacies. So first is digital agriculture, second is urban agriculture, and third is agricultural innovation. So the first two is addressed to Senator Cayetano. So right now po, we have pending bills on urban agriculture, and we also have pending bills on agricultural professionalization. So I'd like to ask for your support with these two pending bills. Hopefully ma-pass siya this Congress, or if not, next Congress po, in agricultural innovation. So yung sa agricultural professionalization po, right now there is a pending bill for the Philippine Agriculturists Bill that seeks to formally professionalize yung agriculture natin. Kasi right now it's just one section in AFMA. So to call to our agriculturists, that is right now we're about more than 40,000 agriculturists in the Philippines that calls for professionalization. And second is the pending urban agriculture bill. So actually, I'm the part of the team that in urban areas. So with the third, my third advocacy is on agricultural innovation. So this is addressed to our dear ambassador. So I know in India there are a lot of agricultural agri-tech startups, and I think some of them are already answering the problems that are similar to our problems here in the Philippines. So if there are maybe cooperations with these startups, especially those dealing with farm management, robotics, IoTs. So I think it will be a good solutions for us in the Philippines to collaborate with these Indian startups. So yun lamang.
Thank you. First, Senator Alan, your reaction, and then Ambassador.
Short answer, yes, and let's coordinate, especially with what you're doing in BGC. Then I like the last part that you're saying that already doing a lot on it. because we all have to understand that the legislative process shouldn't be, but it's usually really behind. So remember when Uber and Airbnb came, diba, DTI and licensing wasn't ready, DOTR wasn't ready. So ngayon naman Grab and Angkas. So it takes time for the rule making and the policy making. But in things that are a no-brainer, like urban agriculture, urban farming, the more pilot areas we have, the faster the legislation will come because, you know, again, because it's a no-brainer when it's already working. No? So I'll try to get your number na lang mamaya.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to answer the question on weeds first. We have just signed last month an MOU between India's National Institute of Ayurveda, which, as you might know, is India's traditional system of medicine, which is thousands of years old, and the Philippine Institute of Traditional and Alternative Healthcare, PTAC. And we believe that this is the beginning of an engagement on traditional medicine, naturopathy. And one of the things that is going to be important there is how do you leverage locally growing plants. So one of the issues that PTAC has highlighted is to catalog all the main plants that you have here, because in India we have cataloged thousands of plants and the various uses. Some of it has already happened in the Philippines. There's an ASEAN Center for Biodiversity up in Los Baños. They have done a set of those. So understand them. You could also, that could lead to development of farms and commercial exploitation of some of them. So obviously it's an important area that you've highlighted, and we'd like to continue to remain engaged. With regard to the innovation ecosystem, you're absolutely right. And I mentioned that when I spoke, that in India we have prioritized digital technology. The Prime Minister himself has been speaking about Digital India, which includes agriculture. And we are going to work with President Fausto and the team here to try and get a delegation to India. And when I spoke to the President-elect, I also mentioned the fact that we'll be quite happy to receive a delegation. And I'd invite many of you to join that group, either physically or virtually, and then be exposed to a lot of the agri-tech that is happening. So it's really a universe of techs out there: edu-tech, agri-tech, health tech, fintech. But it is critical that we leverage the newness that is there in many of these setups, because they are, as you very rightly said, they are solving the problems that you're trying to solve now. And because India and Philippines both have scale, and because, as I said, the similarity of our agricultural ecosystems, and we'd like to find out what you have so that we can together build resilient and food secure nations, thriving democracies in the Indo-Pacific. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. There was another question related to that, and that's from Mr. Toto Barcelona, but I think you touched on the answer to that. I'm going to call the last questioner in a short while, but don't be discouraged. The Secretariat will take down whatever questions you would like to ask our guests of honor, and rest assured, we'll convey them to the ambassador and to the senator, and you will get your answers. All right? For the final question this afternoon, in the interest of time, we still have an hour of technology information dissemination. Mr. Christian Monsod, your question, please.
Very happy to congratulate Senator Cayetano. I was the ponente in a case to disqualify him running for senator in the case, correct? And I voted and wrote the decision that you should not be disqualified because the facts and the law were in your favor. Through your political career, I've followed you. And many times when I did not agree with actions again. Now, I would just like to ask, if you look at our problem today, we're all talking about economic growth, addressing poverty, and so on. But, in the Constitution, the heart of the Constitution is not on the economy, although the first section says equitable distribution before production and before productivity. The heart of the Constitution is social justice. And a social justice about education and health, and 4 asset reform program: agrarian reform, urban land reform and housing, indigenous peoples, and fishermen. They're the poorest of the poor in our country. And Balisacan reminded him when he's led ahead and wrote an article that inequality is a glass ceiling on economic growth and therefore a glass ceiling on addressing poverty. And, if you look at our record, our poverty was about 40% in 1986, gone down to 16.6 in poverty incidence, maybe now 23 again because of the pandemic. But the inequality hasn't changed much in our country, and we have to address that. I just want one example because this is not relation for it. Agrarian reform, underfunded by instead of 225, 175 billion over 20 years, correct? In the extension, instead of 150, 135, underfunded. Only 55% of the farmers received supporting services, 55%. And yet, those 55% said that lives improved 81%. So please, all these asset reform programs are underperforming. So please attend to them. Let me just close with a story about Yo-Yo Ma. You know him, the one that cellist the world said. He was rehearsing in the orchestra, and then in the time to eat lunch, they opened their packages, and he said, "Oh no, ham and cheese again. I hate ham and cheese. I always ham and cheese." So they asked him, "Who prepares your meal?" And he said, "I do." Question is, what is the lesson of that story? We are responsible for what we are, and it's only us who can solve it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. That brings to a close the open forum with our 2 guests of honor. And as I had emphasized earlier, the Secretariat is willing to take down notes of your remaining questions. And rest assured, you will be answered accordingly. All right. At this point, I'd like to say thank you to Senator Alan Cayetano and Ambassador Kumaran for being so candid and open in our discussions. A big round of applause for our 2 guests of honor. Thank you, gentlemen. I understand, Ambassador, you have to move on to your next engagement, similarly with Senator Allen. But if you still have time, we have 1 more hour to listen to the new technologies and possible partnerships that we may have with some of the Indian partners with us this afternoon. So be ready, the innovators, the businessmen. I will call on you in the next 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Again, thank you to Senator Allen and Ambassador Kumaran. Okay. To start off with the technology information sharing, I'll call on the first presenter. He is Mr. Rajiv Wahi, the head of International Business Escorts Limited. He will be in a virtual setup. So please listen. Thank you.
Yeah, not a lot. Hello, am I audible now? Hi, good afternoon. Am I audible now? Hello. Yeah, can you hear me? Hi, good afternoon, everyone. To all the fellow participants for this important event. My fellow speakers before me, the Honorable Senator, the Honorable Indian Ambassador to Philippines, and Mr. Danny Fausto have very clearly elaborated on the opportunities in the agricultural sector in Philippines. So I would not spend more time on that. Philippines, as we know, is a very important for agriculture in the region. It contributes about 20% of the GDP, and 23% of Filipino workforce is employed in agriculture. Though, as the Senator mentioned, the budget allocated for agriculture is even less than 2%. There's adequate water resources, fertile soil, good climate, and right set of human resources available for various crops like cassava, cocoa, coffee, tobacco, rubber trees, etc. But still, the productivity is not what is desired. There's a lot of scope to develop agriculture. For this, we need to create an ecosystem where to increase the buying capacity of the farmers, agriculture to be promoted as business. The Senator before said, we need to make agriculture fashionable, popular. I would also further add to that, agriculture to be promoted as a business. We should encourage tractorization and mechanization with appropriate and affordable technology products. Extend training and skill development, again, a very important area, soft skills along with the hardware, and develop sustainable irrigation and water management system. The need of the hour, we say, is bring in a green revolution in Philippines and make it self-sufficient in all respects for agriculture and in a matter of food security. For this, there are four major pillars that one has to look at. What the customer is really wanting is a better choice and variety of products, a competitive, good quality, and after-sale service support and spare parts. The government can play a very important role by giving access to farmland on lease, promote cooperatives, subsidy and financing for agricultural inputs. Infrastructure and services also need to ensure the market access. Whatever is produced, there has to be a value chain developed for their storage and further processing. The supply chain needs to have that infrastructure, and selection of inputs as per market demand. So this would involve the land preparation and best practices for agriculture to improve the productivity. Tractors and farm equipment can change the entire villages. It's not just really only agriculture. Tractor is used is a multi-purpose machine. from haulage to part seller, logistics, tractor dealer, tractor drivers, mechanics, service workshop, mining, custom hiring. So a tractor can have multi-applications and creates a number of jobs. In India, nearly 60-65% of applications for a tractor are non-agricultural, which makes tractors an important source of business and income for the owner farmer, and also creates a number of other job opportunities. Our Indian ambassador also elaborated about the Indian experience, which I would like to briefly touch about. We've gone through similar phases, India and Philippines, in terms of our agriculture, and the last 30 to 40 years, from a position of food scarcity to today in abundance. We are able to export some of the major crops like sugar, wheat, etc., to our neighboring countries and others, especially during this war. Also, India has been able to export to a number of countries our food grains. My company, Escorts, it's a 75-year-old group from India into three major verticals of agri-machinery, railway equipment, and construction equipment, which I'll just briefly elaborate upon. Tractor division, which is under Farm Track and Power Track, two major brands. Farm Track has a tractor range starting from 12 horsepower going up to 110, and Power Track is from 26 to 90 odd horsepower. It comes with unique propositions. We have last 2021 about 100,000 tractors we manufactured and sold. We are further increasing our capacity, offering best-in-class engineering. We are the only company today commercially selling electric tractors from India in terms of higher technology products. Also develop autonomous tractors, stage 5 emission tractors, which we are exporting to countries like USA and Europe. So we have a worldwide reach, and fourth position in India. We're looking forward to bring a full range to Philippines. Brief history on the group. I said 75-year-old, started with import of tractors, Massey Ferguson's, and way back in 1958. Set up a joint venture with Ford Motor Company to make first tractor in India. Then brought Ferrari to India. And now a couple of years back, we've also done a joint venture now with Kubota, which is Kubota and Escorts as a joint venture company have brought in the new range Kubota technology, Japanese know-how to India, and making India as a hub for the global markets. So again, a very important event in our company history. So now we have three major brands: Farm Track, Power Track, and Kubota, along with the implements range under our Farm Power, where we do again a wide range of implements from land preparation to harvesting. Our tractors have been winning a lot of awards in India, both Power Track and Farm Track, best in various segments, both in compact and utility segments. So it's a highly, it's an honor that it's well received by our farmers, not only in India, but globally. The land preparation, transport, field preparation, sowing, interculture, harvesting, post-harvesting, transport, these are various applications for the tractors. And we do all these implements, attachments, along with tractors to give a complete solution, tractor and equipment to our customers. We are exporting globally, electric tractors, as I said before, a number of applications globally. One of the well-received products, both Farm Track and Power Track, today to about 70 plus countries on all continents. Philippines, I'll touch again. This is our major market that we're looking at. I've already touched before. There's a lot of scope, and we are present in Philippines since 2004. Again, one of the first countries that we went out from India way back in 2004. Our partner, Ford Tractor, a long-term partner for us as well. They are representing us with a wide range of products from compacts, 50 horsepower, 45, 60, 90 horsepower. And we have together set up a dealer network across Philippines, islands, wherever there is agriculture. We are expanding year on year. and thank the various government departments from Philippines who have been for their support wherever we have sought in promoting our farm track range in Philippines. We have the dealer network across Philippines with the Ford tractor with a very dependable and trained manpower in sales, service, and spare parts. We are regularly doing a lot of training programs, both in India and Philippines for our team members, dealer staff. Workshops are arranged both indoors, outdoors. Customer support vehicles are available to provide doorstep service. Also, a lot of field demonstration are organized to educate the customer on best practices, how to improve the productivity and introduce new technology products to them. Some of the glimpses of activities that we regularly keep doing in Philippines, demonstrations, service camps, product clinics, etc. So it's an honor for us to be represented in Philippines, and we look forward to bring new products, new technologies, and serve the Filipino customer and contribute to the green revolution in Philippines. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone. Should I go next? Hello. All right. So my name is Vivek Pandey. I represent Ecozen. We are a company based out of India, and we have been in the agri-tech space for the past 10 years now. I have a small presentation through which I'll take you through, talk about what we do as a company and what we strive to achieve by implementing our technologies in the agri value chain. So just give me a moment while I present. Okay, so we at Ecozen, are on a journey towards enabling farm to plate value chain of perishables, and while doing so, we do it sustainably. So as we all know, food losses, food wastage is real. So I think the gentleman before me talked about, increasing agri-mechanization, part of that definitely helps improve productivity. But while we do so, we also need to keep a watch of how much of food that is grown is being wasted. And I have a couple of findings from some of the reports presented by BCG in the World Economic Forum, where they talk about severe amount of losses that are happening across the value chain of perishables in production, handling and storage, at the end of during the consumption as well. And post-production, so during production, post-production, and during handling and storage is something that we target with our product sets, which essentially are cooling solutions to mitigate the amount of wastage that happens post-harvest, be it right after harvest, which is a major contributor to the losses, or be it during handling and storage or distribution and retail, right? Another thing that I would like to highlight in this forum is that while we strive to improve that scenario, it requires a lot of infrastructure, and one of that infra is availability of cold chain. Right? Now, cold chain itself is an energy-intensive technology intervention, and as we see the amount of air conditioning needs for human usages for cooling of fruits and vegetables, etc., are increasing. They're set to increase like threefold in the next 15 to 20 years, and that's a scenario that we need to take into account while we are solving the food loss problem, right? This is essentially to ensure that the climate change because of excessive usage of cooling, which is a huge energy guzzler, the effect of that is minimized while we are solving other problems, right? Now, if we look at the problems that are affecting the agri community because of not having proper post-harvest infrastructure to handle their commodities leading to losses, are things like food loss. So once you produce, not storing it properly, the time to market is not correct, we end up losing something. In India, we have seen that farmers are producing certain quantity of commodities, and they go on the same day or the next day to sell their commodities in local mandis, which are local marketplaces, and they sometimes come back with a lot of their produce. And in one of the photos that I showed earlier, which is this one, this is a scenario that happens every year in the country. Every year there will be a point of time in the year, a certain duration, during which tomatoes will be thrown away on the roads. And the reason for that is the cost of production of these tomatoes. The farmers are not even able to recuperate that while selling it, because the selling prices are very, very low. And this happens when the supply is immense, the demand is not so much, right? And these are glut situations that we as agri community definitely face. In order to put any infrastructure in place on the farm level, or even in in towns and tier 2 and tier 3 cities, inconsistent power supply is a huge issue, and that leads to usage of diesel electricity, huge capex, and severe operational as well as a cost to the environment that happens because of that. And at the end of it, because of not able to handle their produce well, there is a significant quality loss that starts happening right from the harvest. And these are some of the problems that we are trying to solve for the agri community with our solutions. While we solve this, there are some world problems that are also supposed to be solved. So food loss directly leads to global warming, right? If we are throwing away food, it is getting wasted. These are producing several kind of gases which are leading to higher greenhouse warming and leading directly to climate change. Unsustainable cooling methods, which are inefficient in nature, which requires a lot of energy. The efficiency levels of cooling systems have increased over time, but usage of newer technologies is not something which is being adopted very, very rapidly compared to how it is being adopted in our air conditioning systems. At the same time, inconsistent supply chain. If our logistics is not correct, if we are transporting, a farmer is producing 200 kgs today, and that person is transporting it on the same day to their destination markets and doing it like every day, every other day, that's not really a very efficient supply chain, right? And especially in cases when we don't have enough amount of infrastructure on the road, which leads to fast transportation, that further makes the problem a little worse. Looking at all of these problems, the problems faced by the community itself, the problems faced because of the world, for the kind of solutions which are traditionally available, we have come up with a very innovative solution on that front to help the entire community. And we have deployed this on, across India. We have deployed this in Philippines. I'm very happy to say that some of our installations have already happened in Philippines. We have also gone to some parts of Africa where we are serving the agri community with our products and solutions. One of our solutions is EcoFrost. It's essentially a solar-powered cooling device. It's a containerized solution. It runs directly on solar power. It's a standalone solution. It can, of course, be run in a hybrid mode with electricity as a power source as well. But this is a product which has been made while keeping energy efficiency in mind. So if the refrigeration system's energy efficiency is considered vis-a-vis a traditional cooling system, we are at least 20% more efficient because of the way we consume power. We do not use batteries for backup because whenever you are putting solar power as a power source, we cannot provide consistent electricity 24/7. In order to do it during non-sunny hours, the traditional use of batteries is done. These are chemical batteries which have to be, which are quite expensive. They have to be replaced after a certain period of time. And so we don't use those chemical batteries for our main backup purposes. We have a patented technology on that front, which is a thermal energy storage system. To put it simply, it is essentially freezing water to ice and then melting it over time in a very efficient manner to manage cooling and keep consistent cooling throughout the day. Right? It's a portable system, so we do have non-portable systems as well, but we also make portable systems so that the agri community can use it very effectively. And as an example, if the production of a certain commodity is happening in a certain region, and that happens only for 3 months, then for the next 9 months, this asset will be rendered useless, right? In order to solve that, we have made a portable solution where one can use it for 3 to 6 months, and then it can be moved from one place to another, and then it starts creating value at the other place where new commodities are grown. So several patents which we have filed on this product. We monitor these devices remotely using our IoT technology, which is not just for monitoring purpose, but preventive maintenance, diagnostics of any issues, alerting our clients very effectively to ensure that they are able to maintain their product properly. This being a new technology, of course, some education on the farmer front also is required and internet really helps solve that problem. We maintain a temperature of anywhere between 4 degree or 15 degree, although I've written 10 degree over here, to 15 degrees. It's a user set point that they can set according to the crops they are putting inside, and that temperature is maintained consistently over the next 30 hours without any issues. The standard solution is a 20 feet by 8 feet by 8 feet, 5 metric ton capacity, which can hold 250 of these crates, the crates that you're seeing lying outside. We also have another model recently launched. It's a 2 metric ton product, which has slightly lower capacity than this. The way we add value on this front is, if you look at the supply chain of perishables, we could divide maybe these perishables into two different verticals. One which are highly perishable, and for example, figs, for example, strawberries, or for example, broccoli, they will deteriorate very, very rapidly. Something like pomegranate might take even 10 days or 15 days to deteriorate, right? So it falls in a different category. For highly perishable commodities, it becomes very important to pre-cool the commodity right after harvest. And EcoFrost comes into picture with its capabilities right there. It can pull down the commodity's temperature from the ambient temperature to the required temperature within a matter of 6 hours. And that automatically improves the shelf life. Even if it is taken out from the cold room after that, a percentage of life is automatically increased. We are now working on solutions where we can enable mid-mile logistics, where after cooling, it is transported to another place, and some part load transportation can be done in any means of transportation, so that the entire cold chain remains intact without using something like, let's say, reefer trucks, right? Another case where this is used on the distribution center. So once the commodity reaches the destination where it has to be distributed to the end consumers, there are companies that we are working with in India, big internet-based startups as well as matured companies, including Big Basket, Reliance, Swiggy, and more retail and people like them, to enable distribution side staging of commodities as well, to maintain the shelf life on that front. So the earlier photo that we saw, this is like a unibody product. So this has a standard 20 feet by 20 feet dimension. However, we have now, in the past a couple of years, we have launched this product, which is much like a window air conditioner. This can be put in front of any room, and that gets converted to a cold room, and one can deploy solar panels on the rooftop to make that a cold room. Of course, the size of the room will be a restriction, but it becomes very, very flexible. So this is the version of the product which is actually installed in Philippines as well. Yeah. I already talked about the merits of the product, so I'll skip this slide in the interest of time. But essentially, this is a solar-powered system. The 5 metric ton will have 5 kilowatt solar panels. The 2 metric ton will have 3 kilowatt solar panels, maintaining temperatures between 4 and 15 degrees. One of the things that I would like to highlight is that as an industry, as a refrigeration industry, so we have been phasing out unsustainable methods of cooling. So there are gases which were freons and other things which were being used in the past, which create a large greenhouse warming potential as well as ozone depletion potential. We use refrigerants which are zero ozone depleting potential and very low GWP, which is a greenhouse warming potential gases. That is how we in fact plan to introduce some refrigerants which will be zero or very close to zero greenhouse warming potential gases very soon as well. There are some safety aspects while doing that, but we are in the process of doing that as well. I wanted to highlight that when somebody is using thermal energy storage, this technology is maybe hundreds of years old. Freezing ice, melting it over time to maintain temperature is nothing new, right? But efficiency, uniform air circulation, charging it very, very fast, discharging it at the right rate, it becomes very important, and that is something that we have. That is where we have innovated a lot to enable this to happen. All of these devices are smart and connected, send data to us every 20 seconds, or if any fault happens, immediately it is recorded on our portals. An Android-based app notification is also sent to them. We don't really want farmers to worry about what temperature to set, right? And that is where the human-centered approach or farmer-centric approach of product design has come into picture, where we just enable people or farmers to add commodities on their Android apps, and the system sets the best temperature and the best humidity set point automatically. Right? If there are uncompatible commodities which are being kept together, they can. It also says an alert that okay, you should not store this commodity with that commodity. So that really helps farmers to, without having to go into the depth of plant sciences and things like that. The best temperatures, best humidity is something that is that will maximize the shelf life of all the commodities which are kept inside. These are some of the, so Mr. Wahi earlier was also talking about making farmers businessmen, and we have seen that transition happen with some of our user bases, right? So while all this talk of energy efficiency, sustainable cooling, preventing of food losses, etc., is very important. Another part that is important for the farmers to act as businessmen is that they are able to time the market right. So I talked about the glut situation where your prices crash in the market and you are not able to get the right kind of value add. This is one of the testimonials where a farmer actually harvested the commodity when the market rate was quite low and become twice that rate within a period of about a month to 3 months, and while they were able to make the right kind of profit that they deserve. Right now, this may sound like somebody may start hoarding the produce inside them, but the way we have designed the produce is majorly to enable ensuring fast supply chains, or for storing commodities which can be stored for a long time in such a manner that glut situations farmers can actually ride out those situations very effectively. This is another from a business. The reason why I included a farmer and a business, because they go hand in hand, right? Now, this business, Big Basket, is procuring directly from farmers, and they are procuring cherries in the northern part of India, and they send it to very far away markets. And usually the way it happens is, it will get transported via roads, come to the capital city, Delhi, and then fly from there, using air transport to different parts of the country, right? And that itself increases the cost of doing this very significantly. And because of not having cold chain, there are losses in the process as well, even though the supply chain is very, very fast, like 3 days or 4 days it will happen. But in our case, even if the time changes by, let's say, a couple of days, because it's now using roads, the cold chain itself maximizes the value of the produce when it reaches the commodity. It remains crunchier, fetching better prices in the market. Right? I'll skip this. So I majorly wanted to talk about our solutions of the cooling solutions that we have at this point of time. But as a company, we are also into pumping solutions. So pre-harvest is something that we we have been doing for a long time now. We have about 80,000 devices on 80,000 different farms present across. And what we make is basically a solar pump controller and a very high efficiency motor. So traditional motors are like induction motors, and we make PMSM motors, which are much more efficient compared to today's induction motors. And these are devices which are put on the field by businesses to enable irrigation without using any electricity. I'll not really go into the details of this, because we are talking majorly about food value chain from a production and a post-production standpoint. But yeah, this is something that we also do. We have been recognized at different forums for our efforts right from the time when we had conceptualized this product back in 2015, 2016 timelines till now, when we have already deployed about 600 to 700 devices across the country, and about 50 of them outside the country as well. We are at a stage where we want to take this globally and help the farming community worldwide with our efforts. With that, I would like to close. These are my contact details and the contact details of my head of business on the cooling side. And should you have any questions, I will be happy to chat even after this conference. I thank you. I thank everyone, the organizers, the honorable members participating in the event to hear me out. And I hope that Philippines as a country is a place where we can actually come in and help the farming community that the way we have been doing it in India. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I hope my screen is visible. I am Satkumar Tomar from Satyuk Analytics. So as a company, what we do is we take satellite data and then we estimate information for the farm. It can be anywhere on the globe. And we use this information to provide the advisor to the farmers, to the agriculture companies, to the banks, and to the crop insurance companies. So we have developed a tool called Sat to Farm, which means satellite to farm. And this tool is available in the Android Play Store. Once you start, you download this, farmer has to just, geotag their farm. They can simply walk around their farm, or they can geotag by locating on the Google Earth. And once the geotag, they start getting all the satellite-based information. So we provide the information like the nutrient information, macronutrient, like NPK, pH value, and soil organic carbon in each farm, and for every 10 meter by 10 meter. So if there is 1 hectare of farm, we provide about 100 values. Based on this, we can tell farmer about the precision farming, how much they need to apply the different kind of fertilizer in different part of the farms. Then we also provide the satellite-based soil moisture. Like, we were discussing about the climate change and overuse of water, at least in India, in many developing countries, and low irrigation efficiency is a major challenge. So how we can optimize the water usage with the help of getting the satellite-based soil moisture data. And all this is possible without putting any hardware on the in the farm or on the ground. So remotely it can be accessed. Then we also provide crop health information where farmer can see how the crops are growing and what all action they need to take. We provide early warning for pest and disease, which pest may come, how they look like, and what are the solutions for it. We provide irrigation-based irrigation scheduling, how much they need to irrigate and when they need to irrigate, depending upon the crop stage, the soil type, and the soil moisture and weather forecast data. We also provide the 15 days weather forecast data on various parameters like rainfall, relative humidity, minimum temperature, maximum temperature to plan for the irrigation operations. So this is how the soil moisture product looks like. These are a few of the images. So soil moisture data, we get raw data from European Space satellite, and this data is available at every 20 meter. So if we have 1 acre farm, you get about 9 values in a 1 acre farm and about 25 values in 1 hectare farm. So farmer can see in different part of the farm, how is the soil moisture, is it under irrigated or over irrigated. We have seen many cases in India and in other side outside India also, where there are the part of the farm receiving low moisture, there are part of the farms having higher moisture, and higher moisture leads to loss in the crop, it leads to more pest and disease, also it's a wastage of water. So how we can optimize the soil moisture or the water application in agriculture without the need of putting any sensor on the ground. This is the NDVI, and we have RVI also. It's NDVI stands for Normalized Difference Vegetation Index, which is tells how much chlorophyll content we have in the different part of the farm. So farmer can monitor how the crops is doing in a large farm and how the different parts are behaving, and they can take action based on it. Whenever we have cloud NDVI data is not available, so we can use radar based indices which are similar to NDVI, called radar vegetation index, and with the help of this we can get data in all the region irrespective of the cloud conditions. Then these are the some example of soil nutrient estimation like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and soil organic carbon, soil pH value, and based on this we provide the advice to the farmer depending upon the crop type, how much fertilizer they need to apply. Like typically we have seen in India, farmers tend to put more fertilizer of one variety, like urea is used lot, but sometimes other nutrients are not, no other fertilizers are not used. So we can provide optimal conditions, how much they need to apply, and it can save the cost. Also, it can increase the crop yield by providing the optimal quantity. These are some other examples. And in this, we provide the information every 10 meter by 10 meter. So we can do soil management zone. Also, we can estimate how they need to apply in different part of the farm. In large part of the world, irrigation is based depends upon the surface water tanks. So we can estimate the surface water area, and it can be used to plan for the optimal operations. How much water is available in the tank and how much they can use and how judiciously they can use the water. We do a lot of field visit. So currently we have about 20,000 farmers, largely coming from India, but we do work outside India. We are working in Guyana, in some part in Africa. And we, very happy to explore partnership with Philippines-based company, how we can work together and, how we can add more value to the farmers. So another benefit of satellite-based data is it can be aggregated to any scale and you can get a large scale picture also. So you can see what is happening at the farm scale also, but also we can get a picture what is happening at the state level or at the national level to plan for operations like, how to provide relief to the farmer and other interventions we need to make. So when we talk about the satellite data or, all this, the app and data coming from satellite and other things. So there are, how we can do descriptive to, tell what is exactly happening, what may happen in the future, and how the problem can be solved, what are the solutions. So all this, kind of things we provide to the farmer and any, government agencies or the companies. Yeah, thank you. So I'll be happy to answer, any questions you have, and we can discuss after the presentation also. And we look forward to, work with the government of Philippines or the any private companies. Thank you.
So I will be very quick. I don't know. Or is it okay that Vineet can come to your laptop and speak directly from here?
Oh, yes. I guess. I wait. Hold on. Hold on.
You can speak from here. Yes, directly. And you can use the camera here.
Yeah.
Can you study present? There's a presentation saved on the desktop. It's not able to. And there's some issue with the audio.
Spotlight ako, friend. Ay. Okay. So, paano magpe-present ng dyan siya magsasalta tapos
Maybe without presentation.
Yeah.
You speak.
Yeah, just
Okay. If you can make it two frame, one with his name, company, and one with.
Sabihin nga, sir. Check nyo nga, sir. Hello, testing. Okay. Share.
Like this. Like this. Like this. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Like this. Like this. This.
Hello. Am I audible? To my friends here, I will just introduce our company, RM Group. We have a multiple location operating, 8 plants in India, 1 in Nepal, Sri Lanka, and recently plant in the Philippines. These are the group of companies. I'm here representing our company fertilizer division, RM Phosphates, and this is our detergent plant. So RM Phosphates is basically a fertilizer manufacturing company where we are manufacturing phosphatic fertilizers, NPK, and soil conditioner. Our unique proposition is a micronutrient phosphate fertilizer with micronutrient. And this is our second plant in Devas in Madhya Pradesh. We are manufacturing about 1,000 tons per day of phosphatic fertilizer, have a unique technology and robust system of quality checking. Our main topic today was about micronutrients importance. Till today, we have seen the growth in agriculture, but what we believe the new era will be based on micronutrients. It is the balancing of micronutrients with macronutrients. If we have a good balance of both the fertilizers, then definitely the yield will be much better. Also, the micronutrients affect, the deficiency of micronutrient affect human health. So if there's a good proposition of micronutrient in the soil, there will be better yield and there will be a good proposition in the crop as well. So human health will be much better. The same thing we have seen in pandemic, the lack of zinc. So every doctor was prescribing zinc. So our this main fertilizer, Zeron, have 5 nutrients. It has a boron, sulfur, calcium, zinc, and phosphate. When all these micronutrient and macronutrient goes together, they give a much better yield. The uptake efficiency increases of all, not only phosphate, but as well as of nitrogen and potash. So we have seen in many demonstration garden, the yield is much better. And since this is done in the proper technological plant, so every granule has an equal proportion of all the 5 nutrients. So spread is much better. We have a strong dealer network of 6,000 retailers and distributors, and our fertilizer are being used currently in 500,000 acres land, and liked by about 200,000 happy farmers are there. the best part of our plant is zero liquid and solid discharge. We don't have any kind of pollution in our plant, and the quality system is robust. Also, with the success of Xeron, we are continuously innovating. We are doing R&D to bring up more and more better fertilizer. So we have done a research with agriculture colleges in India and come up with the next version of Xeron, that is Xeron Plus. It is fortified with zinc plus boron plus magnesium. So I will be introducing these fertilizers to our friends in the Philippines, and we are also ready for the technology share. And we believe that together we all can give a better solution to the farming community, because in the era of pandemic and such a high prices, shortage of food, such unique fertilizer given a better opportunity to all the farmers. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you. No, no.
Can I do it from there? It's not possible.
Baka mag-restart pa tayo ng computer.
No, let's do it.
Let's do it.
So where do I here?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me
It's
check.
a vote of thanks from me.
Yeah. Okay.
Introduce me another.
All right. Thank you to the 4 speakers from the Indian delegation. Very interesting topics. And we have gotten assurances from the Department of Agriculture Undersecretary Ariel Kayanan that such technologies will be disseminated to the regional offices of the Department of Agriculture. So let's all be ready for that. And finally, I would like to call on First Secretary Nishikant Singh for the closing remarks of our wonderful event today.
Good afternoon to everyone. It was a very good show today. So on behalf of the Embassy of India, we would like to convey our heartfelt gratitude to the PCAFI for organizing this India-Philippines Business Conference on Agricultural Cooperation. And we look forward to more sustained engagement on agricultural cooperation with PCAFI. So with these words, I would like to thank everybody who has participated in this event and to all the audience who are there today and who have patiently listened to our conference today. So we look forward for more sustained engagement. And with this, I would like to conclude this event today. So many thanks to all the participants today and to all these speakers from India. Thank you.